Last time I did a pretty weird video relating to Christmas, so now it's time for the more standard one, ranking all of the Christmas specials. I'm also going to include the New Year specials in this as well, so that's the Jodie Whittaker Dalek specials and the End of Time Part 2. Also, no, I'm not including the Feast of Stephen or Spyfall Part 1. I don't think of Spyfall as a New Year's special, even though that's kind of what it was advertised as. Overall, I'm not the biggest fan of the holiday specials. On average, they're probably worse than a standard episode of Doctor Who, but there's definitely still some gems. So without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in last place, we have The Doctor, The Widow and The Wardrobe. This is the only one that I haven't watched in a while. I can't remember much about it, and from what I do remember, I don't have a big urge to go back and revisit it. From what I remember, it's inoffensive, but just a bit dull. There's not much more for me to say.
Kid.
God's sake!
This hammock has developed a fault.
Moving on to 16th, The End of Time Part 1. I just don't enjoy much of this episode, apart from Wilf. And Wilf is excellent, and that's what's keeping it from last, but he's not enough. I don't like the Doctor moping about his regeneration. The bit at the start where there's this cult who revived the Master, it makes no sense. The Master in general is just too weird, and some of the decisions made just make me go, what?
Dinner time!
Really, the only thing it has going for it is Wilf and the excellent cliffhanger. I'm just not a fan. For 15th, The Christmas Invasion. This was when the Christmas specials were still new, so they hadn't completely nailed the format yet. Honestly, I'd say it took until Smith's era to get the vibe right. In this you have a lot of random Christmas elements turn into deadly versions of themselves. Killer Christmas tree, killer Santa robots, it all just feels superficial. I also just don't like Rose that much, so having to spend almost the entire episode just with her and her family is a big turn off. The last 15 minutes or so with the Doctor is pretty good though, although that sword fight does not look great. At 14th, I have The Time of the Doctor, and this one is just overstuffed. The Weeping Angels didn't need to be there, the comedy with 11 falls flat, and is weird instead of funny to me. Tasha Lem doesn't work. I know a lot of people who love this episode, but there's too much working against it for me. However, what does work, really works. Levin's regeneration scene is potentially my favourite of all time. He's got such a beautiful speech and it's just perfect. Basically, when it comes to emotion, this episode does it really well. Anything else and it doesn't.
Got an idea to break the ice. Why don't I project my clothes hologram onto their visual cortexes too?
So, to be clear, no one except me can see your clothes?
Yes, and I'm starting to think it may be causing tension.
Are we playing Twister now?
For number 13, we see the return of the critically acclaimed Killer Christmas Tree and Killer Christmas Santa robots, as well as the introduction of the Killer Christmas Star. How lucky we are. This is better than the Christmas Invasion, simply because the Doctor is actually here for the whole episode, which makes it a lot better. It also has a lot of great comedic moments that actually land, and when Donna isn't screaming every line, she's really compelling. We finally get to the first Capaldi special at number 12 with the return of Dr. Mysterio. This one doesn't have too much dragging it down, but it also doesn't have too much going on in this either. It's fun, and that's all it needs to be. It's got some good emotional beats, but on the whole, it's a superhero parody, and I don't connect with that too much, simply because I just haven't seen a lot of superhero films.
A bit empty, isn't it?
Yes, I created a distraction. I flooded downstairs with Pokemon.
So, the Doctor who has the best placement in terms of their worst special is actually Jodie Whittaker, with Resolution just barely missing out on the top 10 and coming in at 11th. This is a great Dalek story that's kind of dragged down by the family stuff with Ryan's dad. For me, that just doesn't connect, and I dislike that Ryan says he forgives him when he really hasn't done anything to deserve that. Ignoring that though, this is really good. Honestly, all of the episodes from here on out are ones I thoroughly enjoy. So just barely scraping into the top 10 is The End of Time Part 2. This has a lot of good and a bit of bad. It's basically Russell T Davies doing everything he was known for doing, both the positive and the negative. I'm not a fan of the 10th Doctor's last words or the extended goodbye, but there's no doubt that it was very emotional, and the twist with 4 Knox is brilliant. The Master and the Doctor's interactions are always amazing. Wilf is brilliant, the Time Lords are actually threatening, arguably for the only time other than the War Games. Again, lots to love, but the tantrum is a bit much for me. I also usually don't mind self-indulgence, but while it doesn't ruin the episode for me here, it is a bit much.
Come on! We need to get out of here fast.
God bless the cactuses!
That's cacti.
That's racist!
For number 9, it's Voyage of the Damned. This is a lot of fun. It has many epic moments, the characters are compelling and for the most part likeable, with the exception of the ones you're not meant to like. Wolf is in it, there's lots of good here. The only thing that doesn't quite click are the villains. Both the Killer Angels and Max, who are very cartoonish and just don't feel real. The other characters more than make up for them though.
My name is Max.
It really does that.
At number 8, we have Revolution of the Daleks. I really like how this is a sequel to Resolution. It's something that doesn't happen all too often in Doctor Who, so it's nice to see it. Jack Robertson works a lot better here than in Arachnids. I love the idea of the Dalek Civil War, even if it's happened a couple of times now. And the VFX looked gorgeous, especially with the TARDIS. While that scene looks beautiful though, and the Revolution is clever, I just don't like the idea that the Doctor killed a TARDIS, especially considering that since Gallifrey was destroyed, again, there might not be many left. It's a living thing, so that bugs me a lot. And I also just like how quick the prison subplot is resolved, but still more good than bad here though. Number 7 is the epitome of fun with emotion. The first half leaves you so confused, but you're just along for the ride. This might be a controversial pick, but I'm putting the next Doctor here. Yeah, the Cybermen may be weak, the villains in general just don't make too much sense, but I just find this so fun, and at the end of the day that's what matters. David Morrissey is an absolute delight, and it's so much fun to rewatch.
You've got a bloom.
TARDIS, T-A-R-D-I-S. It stands for Tethered Aerial Release Developed in Style. Do you see?
Well, I do now.
I like it.
At number 6, this is an episode where I fully admit that the concept may be carrying it, but it's Eve of the Daleks. I'm a big fan of timey-wimey stuff, it's why Moffat's Error is my favourite, and so a time loop is right up my alley. It also is the perfect solution to making the Daleks seem threatening, allowing them to kill the Doctor and her companions again and again. Ailing B is also wonderful in this, and something else that elevates this episode is how the Daleks are so fun. Sometimes in a Dalek episode you can predict exactly what the Daleks are going to say. That's not the case for this one. Dalek dialogue is at its best when it's kind of ridiculous.
Daleks do not have friends.
Is brilliant. So is
Daleks do not store stuff.
You're in the wrong job then, aren't you?
This is just a lot of fun. It does have one pretty major fault though, in that the Daleks just keep missing, even though it has this Gatling gun. You have the perfect opportunity to allow the Daleks to kill everything, and it's just not being taken. Nick's also a bit too creepy. I also don't care for the romance, but that is very much a me thing. On the whole, I love this. Also, if you haven't already, check out the YouTube video Groundhogamy of the Daleks. It's so funny.
But I confess, we do have my favorite kind of motive, ulterior! And this time we have exchanged the pew-pew for a rat-a-tat-tat, and it cannot possibly miss!
Getting into the top 5 now, it's Twice Upon a Time. I've already done a video analysing a specific scene that I absolutely love, so it already has that as a big positive. Honestly, almost all of this is good. It's a great epilogue to both Capaldi and Moffat's Error, and it is best to treat this as an epilogue as opposed to another adventure. The actual regeneration is kind of weak in my opinion, and the First Doctor is way more sexist than he was in the 60s, but those are the only faults of this episode. Everything else is great to amazing, with the main thing being Capaldi himself, which is the thing that needs to work the most considering it's his regeneration story. It also has that emotional weight to it for me, since Capaldi is my favourite Doctor.
Do I become you? Well, there's a few false starts, but you get there in the end.
But I thought...
What?
Well, I assumed that I'd get... younger.
I am younger!
At number 4, it's The Snowmen. Bringing back the Great Intelligence in a Christmas episode is great, considering how close he is tied to the Yetis. While it's a shame they couldn't be brought back, it's nice to see the Great Intelligence doing something different. It's been said a lot now, but Victorian Clara was probably the best version of Clara, at least with Smith. She has so much energy and is just such a delight to watch. Strax is hilarious, and it's great to see the Paternoster gang start becoming recurring characters. The only weak element is probably the Doctor himself. I'm not into his whole brooding thing that he has going on here. This is just a lot of fun though, and fun is amazing.
Smaller on the outside.
Okay. That is a first.
One episode that is much darker though is Last Christmas, which takes the number 3 spot. While in many ways this goes against the standard Christmas special vibe, it still keeps up the fun atmosphere with the inclusion of Santa, or the brilliant acting by Jenna Coleman when Clara is in the TARDIS at the end of the cold open. Santa and the elves are incredibly funny, with everything brought up that seems to go against the fact that Santa exists just being completely shrugged off with, "It's bigger on the inside." That's just my absolute favourite kind of humour.
There are 526,403,012 children all expecting presents before tomorrow morning. So that's 22 million children per hour. It's impossible, obviously. I've got a second sledge.
The emotional beats also land, and the only thing I really think is wrong with this one is how tacked on the final dream scenes. Because it was tacked on. Jenna Coleman changed her mind on leaving, and it shows. Aside from that though, it's absolutely brilliant.
They're a bit like face huggers, aren't they?
Face huggers?
Oh, you know, Alien. The horror movie Alien.
There's a horror movie called Alien. That's really offensive. No wonder everyone keeps invading you.
So what can top that? Well, if there's one thing I value above all else, it's something that I've brought up a few times. Pure fun. And well, number 2 has that, with the Husbands of Withersong. Withersong is generally a fun character, but she has her weak stories. This is not one of those. Seeing how Wither acts when she thinks the Doctor isn't around is amazing, and it leads to so many laughs and amazing moments. When the 12th Doctor enters the TARDIS and pretends to not know what it is and to have a reaction, it's just so special and honestly one of my favourite Doctor Who moments of all time. I haven't even mentioned the emotional climax of the story, with everything coming full circle in terms of Wither's story, tying up the loose ends of the Forest of the Dead. It doesn't feel like it's just doing it to complete that story though. It feels earned and is gut-wrenching. I love this episode.
Sorry. I've always wanted to see that done properly.
Would you like a drink? Aldebrand brandy. Help yourself. Don't tell Dad.
But there could only ever be one episode to come in at number 1. I'm not being particularly unique with this choice, but it's beloved for a reason. Number 1 is A Christmas Carol. This is the most Christmassy Christmas special, and there's really no contest. Just the energy, the atmosphere, everything about it is amazing. It's an adaptation of Charles Dickens' famous story, but it really goes above and beyond. It would be really easy to just tell the exact same story, but it doesn't. You have the twists like the Ghost of Christmas Future. You have a moral dilemma on whether this is all right for the Doctor to do. You have an even bigger sense of urgency with the crashing ship. This has everything. I honestly have no complaints. It's a 10 out of 10 episode, arguably in contention for best of all time. I wouldn't go that far, but I can definitely understand why you would say that. This is so much fun, so emotional, and such a good story.
I'm the Doctor. I'm your new babysitter.
Where's Mrs. Mantovani?
Ah, you'll never guess, clever old Mrs. Manta. She only went and won the lottery.
There isn't any lottery!
There isn't any lottery.
I know! What a woman!
If you're my babysitter, why are you climbing in the window?
Because if I was climbing out of the window, I'd be going in the wrong direction. Pay attention.
But Mrs. Mantovani's always my babysitter.
Times change. What did you say?
What does your list look like? How does it vary from mine? Any episodes you think are criminally underrated? Maybe overrated? If that's the case, put it in the comments below. But thanks for watching, and I wish you a happy holidays.